my sister and I were reborn together. In our previous life, I married my childhood sweetheart Colin, supporting him from having nothing to the chairman of a listed company, only for him to cheat on me with his unattainable crush when I was pregnant. My sister, on the other hand, was forced by our family to marry the good-for-nothing rich playboy Jace and lived a life of lonely misery. After our rebirth, my sister kneeled and begged me, "Sis, please. Let me have Colin. I know he's going to be wildly successful, I can't live that kind of life again." Seeing her determined expression, I smiled. "Sure, he's yours." I turned around, and under the stunned gazes of my family, said to Jace, who had come to break off the engagement, "The betrothal stands. I'll marry you." Jace looked at me flippantly, as though I were the biggest joke he'd ever seen. "You sure about that?" "I'm famously useless," he said. I nodded. "I'm certain. But I have one condition." I was reborn at the moment my sister Ashley knelt before me. The cold tiles pressed against her knees as she cried, tears streaking her face like pear blossoms in the rain. "Sis, I was wrong in my past life. I shouldn't have been jealous of you. But I was forced to, married to a scumbag like Jace. Do you know how miserable I was? Colin is yours, I know. But he'll rise to success later. Please, I beg you, let me have him. I can't bear another life of loneliness." Each of her sobbed words reminded me of my naivety in my past life. I had endured hardship with Colin, eating the coarsest meals, living in a basement. For his career, I swallowed my pride and begged for favors, drinking until my stomach bled. He succeeded, becoming a billionaire CEO. Holding his beloved in his arms, he looked at my heavily pregnant belly with icy eyes. "Elaine, let's get a divorce. I never loved you. You're too domineering, too dull, I feel suffocated just looking at you." I was thrown out, left with 2 lives lost. As for my sister, Ashley, in our past life, our parents forced her to honor the engagement and marry Jace, the notorious playboy heir who was skilled in drinking, gambling, and womanizing. She hated our family for a lifetime. Now, we're all back. In her gaze when she looks at me, besides pleading, there's more of an undisguised greed and calculation. She was certain I would still be soft-hearted and yield for the sake of so-called family ties, just like in the past life. In the living room, my parents' faces were grim. "Elaine, your sister is kneeling before you. Can't you just give in to her?" my mother screamed. "Colin is broke now, but your sister is willing to endure hardship with him. What's your problem?" My father slammed the table. Like me, they all carried memories from their past lives. They only remembered Colin's later success but forgot what I had sacrificed for it. Staring at the ridiculous expressions on their faces, I suddenly laughed. "Fine." My voice was soft, yet it instantly silenced the entire living room. Ashley looked up abruptly, disbelief in her eyes. My parents froze as well. I walked up to Ashley, looking down at her. "Colin is yours. May you live happily ever after." Ashley's face instantly burst into wild joy, she knew she had bet correctly. Just then, the villa's doorbell rang. The butler ushered in a man dressed in trendy streetwear, his hair dyed a flamboyant flaxen color, with a black obsidian earring dangling from one earlobe. Hands stuffed in his pockets, his posture was slouched and crooked, his entire demeanor screaming devil-may-care. Jace. My ex-brother-in-law from my past life, and my current fiancé. He glanced at the tense atmosphere in the living room, then finally settled his gaze on me, his lips curling into a mocking smirk. "Elaine, right? I'm here to break off the engagement. I have no interest in bookworms like you. The betrothal is void, and we're even." Our parents' faces immediately turned from livid to deathly pale. The family company was barely hanging on by a thread, all thanks to this engagement with Jace. If the engagement were to fall through, the company would go bankrupt immediately. My mother nearly threw herself at Jace's feet to cling to his leg. Ashley watched me with gloating eyes, her gaze brimming with the smugness of "see what you can do now." I walked toward Jace step by step, meeting his gaze head-on. The engagement is still valid. Everyone froze. Jace raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting me to say this. I looked at him calmly and enunciated each word. I'll marry. You sure? Jace scratched his ear, his face wearing an expression that said, have you lost your mind? Me, Jace, a good-for-nothing, notorious throughout the city for drinking, gambling, and womanizing. Marry me, and you'll become the wife of a wastrel. His tone was flippant, laced with undisguised scorn. My parents' faces had turned purple with rage, and my mother's hand trembled as she pointed at me. Elaine. You're insane. You're going to disgrace our entire family. Ashley even burst out laughing, holding onto Colin's arm and looking at me with the expression of someone staring at a fool. Sis, don't be so unreasonable. You don't have to gamble with your whole life just to spite us, do you? I ignored them. I just looked at Jace. I'm certain. But I have one condition. Jace seemed intrigued and gestured for me to continue. First, financial independence after marriage, no interference in each other's affairs. Second, give me $5 million in seed funding. Third, in exchange, I'll handle all the family pressure about marriage and children, plus any business alliances they try to push on you. The mockery on Jace's face gradually faded as he narrowed his eyes to study me, as if appraising an object's worth. His assistant behind him whispered a reminder, young master, your father's side. Jace impatiently waved his hand. He turned his gaze back to me, the corners of his mouth curling into that same roguish grin. Interesting. Deal. After he left, my father was so furious he hurled the teacup beside him at me. Ungrateful wretch. Get out of my sight. I didn't dodge. The teacup grazed past my temple and smashed against the wall, shattering into pieces. Scalding tea splashed onto my face, burning with a fierce sting. My mother collapsed on the sofa, wailing as if the sky had fallen, declaring she no longer had a daughter like me. Ashley and Colin stood nearby, strutting like victorious roosters, basking in their smug triumph. The next day, Jace and I went to get our marriage certificate. There was no wedding, no guests. Getting that certificate felt like completing a cold transaction. Jace's family villa was shockingly large, so empty it felt devoid of any life. On our wedding night, Jace came out of the shower and threw a bank card at me. $5 million. The PIN is 6 zeros. Payment in full, don't bother me from now on. He headed for the guest room. I stopped him. Jace, you might not be leaving tonight. He turned around with an unfriendly gaze. Ignoring his expression, I took out a stack of documents from my bag and placed them on the table in front of him. This is the South City project your father has been desperate to secure. I have a way. Jace was stunned. He picked up the meticulously organized business proposal I had prepared. The disdain and impatience on his face gradually faded, replaced by astonishment and doubt. You did this? Jace flipped through the proposal, his fingers slender and knuckles distinct. I nodded. In my previous life, Jace's father fought fiercely with a rival company for the South City project, resulting in mutual destruction, only for an obscure small company to swoop in and seize the opportunity. The boss of that small company turned out to be the benefactor who gave Colin his first investment. The key to securing the project lay in an undisclosed new environmental regulation the government was about to release. I knew every detail of that regulation. The biggest issue with the land in South City is heavy metal contamination in the soil. Your father's plan was to spend a fortune on soil replacement, but it's high cost and time-consuming, the board would never approve it. Their competitor wanted to use chemical treatments for remediation, which only addresses the symptoms, not the root cause, and risks causing secondary pollution. Jace frowned, clearly, he was already well aware of all this. Next Wednesday, the Environmental Protection Agency will release the new Soil Pollution Control Act, which encourages the use of microbial remediation technology and offers substantial subsidies. I flipped to the key page of the proposal, which listed in detail several research institutions with core technologies, along with their contact information. With this plan, we can reduce costs by 40% and secure government subsidies. It's a guaranteed win. Jace fell silent. He raised his head and looked at me properly for the first time, his gaze filled with probing and scrutiny. How do you know all this? I have my own sources. I didn't want to explain further. Believe it or not, it's up to you. With that, I picked up my pillow and headed for the study. In any case, I had already shown him the path, whether he chose to follow it was his decision. Wait. He called out to me. You take the master bedroom, I'll sleep in the guest room. His voice lost some of its previous flippancy, gaining a note of complexity instead. For the next 3 days, Jace left early and returned late, we barely crossed paths. That was until Wednesday afternoon. The government website promptly announced the new environmental regulations, and the contents matched my account flawlessly. The board of directors at Jace Group was in an uproar. Armed with the plan I had given him, Jace made a name for himself in that meeting. His own father, who had always looked down on him and called him worthless, placed a hand on his shoulder in front of everyone for the first time and said, "Well done." That night, Jace came back very late. He reeked of alcohol, but his gaze was clear. Without a word, he placed a black card in front of me. No password, swipe freely. He looked at me, unable to conceal the excitement and confusion in his eyes. Elaine, what kind of person are you really? I put away the card and smiled at him. Your lawful wife, and your best business partner. Now, can you pay my next fee? What I want is far more than a mere 5 million. Using the seed money Jace gave me, I registered an investment company. The office was set up in the unused top floor of the villa. Having been reborn, my greatest advantage is knowing the economic trends of the next 10 years. Which industries will boom, which companies will skyrocket, and which stocks will double overnight, all of it is crystal clear in my mind. My first investment was buying stocks of a game company on the verge of bankruptcy. In my past life, this company's stock price soared 30-fold a month later after releasing a blockbuster mobile game. But now, it was just a junk stock everyone avoided. My actions became a joke in Jace's stock trading friend circle. Jace, is your wife burning money for fun? Throwing cash down the drain? Jace didn't say anything, just let me do my thing. A month later, the game Age of Divinity and Demons launched its public beta and exploded in popularity overnight. The company's stock price skyrocketed, and the numbers in my account multiplied 30-fold. Those who had mocked me were all stunned. Jace's friends were frantically tagging him in the group chat. Holy shit. Jace. Your wife is a stock market genius. Please, sister-in-law, take me under your wing. Jace sent me a message with just one word, impressive, followed by a fist bump emoji. As I looked at my phone, I couldn't help but smile. Just as my career was taking off, Ashley called. Her voice was full of exhaustion and resentment. Sis, could you lend me some money? I raised an eyebrow. What happened? Colin's company needs funds to keep running. The place we're renting is tiny and shabby, and I'm stuck eating instant noodles with him every day. I can't take it anymore. Her complaints were eerily similar to my past life's experiences. Except this time, the one complaining wasn't me, it was her. This is the path you chose, you must walk it even on your knees, I said coldly. Elaine. How can you be so heartless? We're sisters, she screamed on the other end of the phone. When you were begging me on your knees, why didn't you mention we were sisters? I hung up directly. Not long after, an unknown number sent me a text message. It was from Colin. Elaine, I know you're still mad at me. But Ashley is innocent, she's just been spoiled and doesn't know any better. Could you help us out for my sake? I looked at the phrase for my sake and found it utterly ironic. What's his face worth? I didn't reply. Later, I heard that on that day, Ashley had a huge fight with Colin because I refused to lend her money. Colin accused her of being materialistic and vain, not understanding his difficulties. Ashley cried and called him useless, saying he couldn't provide the life she wanted. During the argument, Colin blurted out, "If only you could be half as sensible as your sister, I'd thank my lucky stars." The words pierced Ashley's heart like a thorn. Jace's father, my father-in-law, looked at me with new respect. For the first time ever, he even invited me to a family banquet. At the dinner, instead of berating Jace as usual, he kept putting food in his bowl, his words full of expectation. "Jace, the project in the South City was well executed. The company is establishing a new energy department, I want you to lead it." Jace's hands paused on his chopsticks. I saw a flicker of resistance in his eyes. In my past life, Jace was forced by his father to take over a business he had no interest in, and in the end, he made a complete mess of everything, solidifying his reputation as a good-for-nothing. What he truly loved was racing, the exhilarating thrill of chasing speed and passion on the track. I put down my chopsticks and spoke with a smile. "Dad, I don't think this arrangement is quite suitable." That single word, Dad, left my father-in-law stunned and caught Jace's attention. Although Jace has performed exceptionally well in the Southern City project, he is still young and lacks experience. New energy is the future of our company, and such an important department should be entrusted to someone more steady and reliable. I paused for a moment before continuing, however, Jace shouldn't just sit idle. I heard the company has some non-performing assets overseas that have been difficult to handle. Why not assign them to him? Even if he messes up, it won't affect the company much, and it'd be a good opportunity for him to gain some experience. Those non-performing assets were a hot potato, whoever took them would be in for trouble. My father-in-law weighed the pros and cons and found my suggestion quite reasonable. It would not only provide his son with valuable training but also have no impact on the company's core operations. He nodded in agreement. Jace looked at me with eyes full of confusion. On the way home, he finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Why did you say that? Aren't you the one who said you didn't like business?" I asked in return. He fell silent. "Jace, our deal was that I'd help you settle the troubles at home. Now, you're free to do whatever you want." The next day, using money I'd earned myself, I bought shares in a small racing team and gave them to Jace. "Go chase your dream." Jace stared at the team contract, frozen in place. When he looked up, his eyes were red. "Why?" "Because the Champions Trophy is way cooler than sitting in an office counting money." That was the first time I saw him smile like that, like a big boy who'd gotten his favorite toy, pure and radiant. From that day on, he stopped staying out all night. He went to the racetrack to train every day, returning with the mingled scent of sweat and gasoline clinging to him. He'd talk to me about racing, the roar of the engine, the techniques for taking corners, his eyes sparkling with a light I'd never seen before. One evening, I was analyzing a new stock on my computer when I unknowingly fell asleep on the couch. In my drowsy state, I felt someone drape a coat over me. On the coat was his distinctive scent, one that always made me feel at ease. Colin's company had finally hit a snag. A fatal flaw was discovered in the product he developed, and he urgently needed funding to redesign and manufacture it. The bank cut off his loan. He pleaded everywhere for help, but no one was willing to invest in his seemingly hopeless project. In the end, he turned to me. At that time, my reputation as the golden touch had already spread throughout the investment circle. He walked into my office, looking haggard, but his eyes still carried that familiar arrogance. He placed the project proposal on my desk, his tone dripping with condescension. "Elaine, I know you're doing well now. Here's my new project, giving you an opportunity to invest." I didn't even lift my eyelids. "My company doesn't invest in trash." His face instantly flushed crimson. "Elaine, what do you mean by that?" "Literal meaning." I finally looked up, staring coldly at him. "Colin, if there's nothing else, please leave and don't interfere with my work." Having been dismissed, he flew into a rage. "Elaine, don't you dare reject my kindness." He rushed forward, trying to grab my wrist. "You think marrying into wealth makes you special?" What can someone like Jace even offer you? He's garbage. You and I are the perfect match. You've changed. You weren't like this before. You've become vain and heartless. His roaring caused employees outside my office to turn their heads. I looked at his contorted face and found it utterly ridiculous. In my past life, it was with this same expression that he accused me of becoming a dull, washed-out housewife. In the end, he never loved me, only the selfless tool who would cater to his every need. Whatever I become has nothing to do with you. Now, get out. Furious, he raised his hand to strike me. Just then, the office door was flung open. Jace, clad in racing gear and still wearing his helmet, strode in. He gripped Colin's wrist mid-swing, his voice icy. Touch her and see what happens. Jace's appearance froze the office atmosphere. His hand clamped around Colin's wrist like an iron vice. Colin grimaced in pain but couldn't break free. Jace? What are you doing here? Jace ignored him, turning to look at me instead, eyes scanning up and down. Did he hurt you? I shook my head. Only after receiving my confirmation did Jace release Colin, pulling me behind him protectively in one fluid motion. A simple gesture, yet it made my heart skip a beat. So, Colin, is it? Jace took off his helmet, revealing his strikingly handsome and bold face. My wife's time is precious. If you're just here to stir up trouble, the door's that way, don't let me show you out. The possessiveness and protectiveness in his tone were unmistakable. Colin's eyes burned with fury as he took in our intimate stance. Jace. Don't let her fool you. You don't know her at all. She's the kind of woman who'd stoop to anything for money. If she married you for your wealth today, she'll betray you for someone else's tomorrow. Jace laughed upon hearing this. His smile was full of disdain and contempt. I know her better than you, so-called childhood friend. I know she can go without sleep for 3 days just to perfect a business proposal. I know she can pinpoint a promising project at a glance and triple the assets in 3 months. She earns her money through her own abilities, fair and square. As for you, Jace looked Colin up and down with disdain, a man who relies on women to climb the social ladder, what right do you have to judge her here? Every word struck a nerve. Colin's face flushed red and then turned pale, a spectacular display of emotions. He was left speechless and could only mutter a final threat. You'll regret this. Then, he fled my office in embarrassment. The office finally fell silent. Jace turned around and looked at me. The earlier arrogance had vanished, replaced by an inexplicable emotion. He seems to still like you. It wasn't a question, but a statement. I met his gaze, my expression calm. No, what he likes is the stepping stone that could bring him success. And that person is already dead. My words froze the expression on Jace's face. He looked at me, something in his eyes quietly changing. Colin's fundraising ultimately failed. To save his company, he started resorting to desperate measures, using some unscrupulous means to secure investments, barely keeping the business afloat. And Ashley became his emotional punching bag. I heard they fought almost every day. They argued over everything, from the hardships of starting a business to the trivialities of daily life. Ashley grew increasingly unable to endure this kind of poverty and hopeless existence. Especially when she saw my investment company rising to prominence and my confident photos featured in financial magazines, her jealousy and resentment reached their peak. She began demanding even more from Colin. When will you finally succeed? How much longer do I have to wait? Look at my sister, she's so successful now. If it weren't for me, that success could have been mine. She kept repeating such words more and more often. Colin's initial guilt gradually turned into numbness, and eventually, only annoyance remained. Finally, after yet another heated argument, Ashley did something foolish. She secretly logged into Colin's company account and transferred a large sum of money. That money was vital funds Colin had prepared to pay his suppliers. Ashley took the money and went on a shopping spree at luxury stores, trying to fill the void in her heart with material possessions. When Colin discovered the company account was empty and suppliers' payment demands flooded in one call after another, he lost his mind. He stormed home, saw luxury shopping bags scattered everywhere and Ashley trying on new clothes in front of the mirror. His last thread of rationality snapped. "Ashley! What have you done?" Seeing him, Ashley didn't show any guilt but instead spoke with righteous indignation. "I just took what I deserve. After enduring so much hardship with you, what's wrong with buying a few things? You'll make a fortune anyway in the future, what's this little money to you?" Colin trembled with anger. "That was my company's life-saving fund. You reckless woman." He rushed forward, trying to snatch the bag from Ashley's hands. The two struggled fiercely with each other. Amidst the chaos, Ashley screamed, "Colin, let go of me. This isn't how you begged for my help back then. I gave up the chance to marry into wealth for you. You owe me for the rest of your life." Colin froze. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Ashley. "I regret it. I should never have gotten involved with you in the first place." He violently shoved Ashley away and slapped her hard across the face. "Compared to your sister, you're like dirt under the clouds." The sharp sound of the slap and those heart-piercing words left Ashley utterly stunned. Clutching her face, she stared at the man before her, her eyes brimming with venom and madness. The last shred of affection between them was gone for good. A year later. To my surprise, and following the same path as the previous life, Colin's company actually went public. By stealing a senior's core technology, packaging it as his own product, and deceiving investors, he ultimately succeeded in ringing the bell. In an instant, he transformed from a struggling entrepreneur into a young and promising CEO of a listed company. The media portrayed him as a role model of rags to riches success, basking in endless glory. The first thing he did was divorce Ashley. He kicked her out without giving her a single cent. The second thing was to come find me. At an upscale business gala that gathered the city's elite, he strode toward me, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, hair meticulously styled, holding a champagne glass with an air of triumph. At that moment, I was standing with Jace, who had just won the Asian Championship in an international racing competition. It was the victory banquet I had thrown for him. "Elaine," Colin's voice carried a confident gentleness. "Long time no see. You've become even more beautiful." I remained silent, simply regarding him coldly. Jace's arm around my waist tightened slightly. As if oblivious to Jace, Colin's eyes were fixed solely on me. "Elaine, I know I was wrong. Before, I was blinded. Ashley, she was never what I truly wanted. The one I've loved, from beginning to end, has only been you. You've always been my moonlight." He spoke so fervently, acting as if it were all real. Some guests nearby had already noticed the commotion and were casting curious glances in our direction. "Elaine, come back to me. Now I have the means to give you the best life in the world. We were always meant to be." As he spoke, he extended his hand toward me, inviting me to dance. His posture seemed to declare his victory and my inevitable return. I was about to open my mouth to refuse. But Jace beside me suddenly moved. He pulled me into his arms, lowered his head, and fiercely kissed me in front of everyone. The flashlights went wild at that moment. The entire banquet hall erupted in uproar. My mind went blank, overwhelmed only by the undeniable dominance and scorching heat of his lips pressing against mine. After a long while, he finally released me. Holding me close, his gaze carried a hint of challenge and overwhelming possessiveness as he looked at the petrified Colin. "See clearly? She's my wife." Colin's face turned pale and green, as if he had been stripped naked in public. His proud success, his carefully planned heartfelt confession, became a complete joke in the face of Jace's domineering and direct kiss. The surrounding whispers and camera flashes pierced his pitiful pride like daggers. In the end, he couldn't utter a single word and turned away in despair, disappearing into the crowd. The atmosphere of the banquet grew somewhat because of this incident. Jace, however, acted as if nothing had happened, continuing to hold me while chatting and laughing with friends who came to congratulate us. Only the hand on my waist never let go. On the way home, the car was eerily quiet. The impact of that earlier kiss still reverberated in my heart. I didn't know whether Jace's action stemmed from possessiveness or simply a desire to help me out of an awkward situation. Our marriage has been a transaction from the very beginning. We are allies, partners, but nothing like a married couple. The car came to a stop by the riverside. Jace turned off the engine, leaving only the sound of our breaths in the cabin. We spoke at the same time, then both fell silent. In the end, he broke the silence first. Earlier, I wasn't acting. His voice was slightly hoarse, lacking its usual casualness, replaced by a trace of nervousness. I turned to look at him, the riverside streetlights filtered through the car window, casting shadows and light across his sharply defined profile. Elaine, I know our relationship started under questionable circumstances, just a transaction. I thought I was merely finding a shield and getting some entertainment on the side. But ever since you handed me that proposal on our wedding night, everything spiraled out of control. You helped me earn my father's approval, you supported my racing career, you took my dreams seriously. No one has ever treated me the way you have. He turned his head and looked at me earnestly. Those peach blossom eyes, always filled with casual amusement, were now brimming with clumsy sincerity. Elaine, this good-for-nothing seems to have fallen in love with you. I don't know how to say these cheesy things, but I don't want to make deals anymore. I want to be your real husband and wife. Looking at his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white, and that expression as if awaiting a verdict, my heart, frozen for 2 lifetimes, seemed to crack open a little. Before I could respond to Jace's confession, Colin got into trouble. No sooner had he been publicly humiliated at the party than he was taken away by the police. The one who reported him was Ashley. After the divorce, she had nothing left and harbored deep hatred for Colin. She handed over all the evidence, how Colin had stolen his senior's technology and falsified accounts to swindle investments, directly to the police and the media. As it turned out, Colin's company going public was nothing but a massive scam. Once the news broke, the stock price plummeted, and the company instantly became an empty shell. Colin was thrown behind bars, his brief moment of glory burst like a dazzling bubble, shattering with a pop. As for Ashley, having been involved, she too became an accomplice and couldn't escape the clutches of the law. The two who had been entangled for a lifetime in their past lives met their downfall together this time around, ending in ruin in such a manner. I watched the news on TV, seeing them handcuffed and looking disheveled, but felt not a ripple of emotion in my heart. Jace walked over and turned off the TV. Don't let this trash dirty your eyes. He took my hand and led me to the underground garage of the villa. Parked inside was a brand new, sleek and elegant silver-gray sports car. On the body of the car, painted in beautiful artistic lettering, was my name, Elaine. I froze. Jace hugged me from behind, his chin resting on the curve of my shoulder. The next race is the World Championship. They all say I'm a dark horse, that winning the Asian Championship was just luck. They don't know my real fortune is actually you. His voice, warm with emotion, brushed against my ear. Elaine, you're my navigator, my championship trophy. So, will you come with me to the World Championship? I gazed at the racing car bearing my name, feeling the warmth of his embrace behind me, and suddenly my eyes grew moist. Turning around, I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips. Yes. The Monaco circuit winds along the azure Mediterranean coast, both thrilling and mesmerizing. The finals of the World Racing Championship are held here. I sat in the VIP viewing stand, watching the sleek silver-gray Elaine racing like the wind on the track. My investment company has become a giant in the industry. And Jace, once dismissed by others as a useless rich heir, has transformed into the brightest rising star in the racing world. The race was extraordinarily intense. Jace's opponent was the reigning world champion, a veteran with ruthless tactics. At the final bend, the opponent executed a dangerous blocking move, attempting to force Jace off the track. My heart instantly leaped into my throat. Then, the Elaine executed a flawless drift, hugging the guardrail at an impossible angle and brushing past the opponent's car to complete the overtake. The entire venue erupted in thunderous cheers. Jace crossed the finish line first. He had won. A new world champion was born. He didn't immediately head for the podium but instead drove his car for a victory lap around the track. In the end, the much-anticipated Elaine came to a stop right beneath my viewing stand. Jace took off his helmet and ran toward me amidst a sea of camera flashes and cheers. His hair was damp with sweat, his face still dotted with champagne foam, but his smile shone brighter than the Monaco sunshine. He pushed through the crowd, arms wide open, and held me tight in an embrace. Every camera in the world was trained on us. Cupping his handsome face in my hands, I kissed my beloved, my champion, in full view of everyone. As for the grudges from our past life, they had long since dispersed like the dust kicked up by racing cars, carried away by the wind. My future is mine to decide. And my future is him.